What's up, edu gamers? We're gonna look at the idea of risk taking, both from a teaching perspective and a learning perspective. And I'm Dustin Stats with Board Gaming with Education. Let's go. So these episodes are called VideoCast episodes because we're looking at an idea from the Board Game with Education podcast. We're diving deeper into that idea or kind of looking at it from a different perspective. So each week we'll have a VideoCast episode released based on a past episode of the Board Game with Education podcast. You can check out the podcast on any podcasting platform. Episodes come out every Monday. So let's look at the topic for today's VideoCast episode. So I had the privilege of talking to Christienne Hinz on the Board Game with Education podcast. She is a history professor that incorporates gamification and world building into the classes she teaches. I really wish I was one of her students. I highly recommend checking out the podcast to hear a little bit more about the classes she teaches and how she actually brings in gamification and world building into those classes. But today we're going to look at one idea that she talked about on the episode, and that is risk taking. So let's listen in to what she had to say.
We started the class. I said to them, look, I'm experimenting and you're teaching me how to do this as much as I'm teaching you anything about world history. And let's see what magic we can make. And they were on board with that, right? And we had a really good time. So I learned a lot by taking the risk. The same way that I think students learn a lot when they take risks in class. So, I was modeling what I was teaching, in that sense, that risk taking and not knowing and testing is what we're doing in a classroom. That's what we do.
I love this. This is such a great mindset to have as a teacher and as a student. 100% of the time, our successes are products of our failures, and our failures come from those risks we take. I want to talk about a risk I took as a first-year teacher, and I encourage you to do the same. Leave a comment below. Let me know about a time you took a risk either as an educator or in your career or as a learner. And bonus points if it has anything to do with games. So I was a first-year middle school teacher in South Korea, and I was really struggling with a class of mostly 11 to 12-year-old boys. In our school, we used a blue star, red star system. We would give blue stars to encourage positive behaviors in our class and negative stars for things we wanted to discourage in our class. This worked okay for most of my classes, but this class in particular, I needed to do something different. So the movie The Avengers was really, really popular at that time, and I thought somehow maybe I could leverage this piece of pop culture as a part of my instruction or classroom management. So I decided to create a game based off The Avengers and use it as a classroom management tool. So I printed out pretty large pictures of all of the Avengers, and I was going to bring it into my class, and each of the students and in groups were going to play as superheroes. So if you want to learn more about that game in particular, let me know in the comments below, but this is more about a story about the risk that I was taking. So the risk I was taking was bringing this new idea, using something I was not comfortable with in my classroom, getting away from the red star system, the blue star system, and using something different. And I was kind of worried. I had these thoughts in my head that, well, what if they just think it's super, super silly and it just makes class worse and then they act up even more? What if they just make fun of it? What if they take advantage of the game that I'm creating for them? I was worried about a lot of these things. They were in the back of my head as I was preparing to bring them to class. I decided to push those feelings, those thoughts aside and get away from that comfort that I was used to, the red star blue thing, try something different, buck the trend a little bit, and instantly my students bought into the idea. They were super thrilled that their teacher was bringing in something different, and they were excited to see, what are these cutouts of the Avengers? What does that mean? And they were very curious about the whole game and how it would be incorporated in their lesson. So I'm so thankful that I did this in my first year of teaching because I think it has developed me into the educator I am today. I'm willing to try different things. I'm willing to take different risks and always looking for ways to improve my instruction and also change the things I'm doing in my class or in my relationships and interactions with my students. That is just one of several times I've taken a risk as a teacher or an educator or a student. I'm taking risks now with the podcast and the YouTube channel. I'm so happy I'm doing that because, again, we got to think about those risks as failures and stepping stones towards success. Check out Christienne's podcast episode. I'll leave a link below. Before I go, I would love to hear from you. Tell me your risk-taking story in the comments below. Stay tuned for VideoCast episode number 3, released every week, and our podcast, Board Game with Education, released on Mondays.